No one paid for these things. No one cut us a single check for our opinions, which is insane to me because, John, I feel like you've kind of become the poster boy for this on social media.
You should speak for yourself, man. I just deposited my check an hour ago. I don't know about you.
What is going on, you guys? Welcome back into the Takedown on SI YouTube channel for a special edition of Discussions. Happy New Year. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for joining us here. Make sure to give us a like. Make sure to subscribe as well. We've had a pretty busy week on the channel so far. Great end to 2025. Check out Jon Alba's incredible interview with Tony Khan, who we'll be talking about on this show today. A 2-hour conversation with Tony Khan. That was a marathon event. You did a hell of a job with that.
Thank you.
Check out my interview with Kendall Gray as well. Not quite as long, but she is spectacular and definitely one to watch in 2026. As a matter of fact, that's the final award we gave out this year, was Kendall Gray, our one to watch in 2026. But we're going to talk about the big list that we put out a couple of weeks ago here on the Takedown on SI, our 2025 Pro Wrestling Awards of the Year. And if you've been watching AEW at all, you know these answers by heart by now, as they've been running down every single one of them that they won this year ad nauseum. And I just want to start off as, by the way, I'm Rick Ucchino, Jon Alba, Blake Lovell, and SP3. We are 4 of the 9 writers who voted on these awards this year. I feel I can't believe I have to say this, but I'm going to go ahead and say this off the jump. No one paid for these things. No one cut us a single check for our opinions, which is insane to me because, John, I feel like you've kind of become the poster boy for this on social media.
You should speak for yourself, man. I just deposited my check an hour ago. I don't know about you. No, needless to say, this is not payola.
Yeah.
Actually, I almost think we were overwhelmingly fair with how we conducted this process, truth be told. Like, I think we were probably even more fair than we needed to be in how we went about nominating and dividing up the winners. It was a pretty transparent and fluid process that I think was fair to pretty much everybody.
Yeah, so let's explain how we did this. So we had our 14 categories that we laid out, and each writer wrote in their top 5 responses. All right. There was no multiple choice. There was no suggestions. There was none of that. It was, what's your top 5? And then whatever you put in first place got 5 points, second place, 4 points, and on down the list. Total accumulative score 1. And that's it, folks. That 9 writers. It was kind of like a Heisman ballot, honestly, really, as we put things down and counted up the scores. And did I agree with everything? No. Did SP3 agree with everything? No. Did Jon Alba agree with everything? Hell no. Blake did. But, he was the only one.
Yes, the guy who probably voted more WWE people at 1 than anyone else, and I'm like, yeah, that was me though. So
it's just funny to hear people say that, oh, these were bought and paid for. I'm like, so let me get this straight, SP3. Tony Khan paid a bunch of money so he could mention our branding on his airwaves ad nauseum. That's backwards. That's the opposite of how these things work.
I just love the theorists out there that believe that companies will pay us, but they totally ignore the fact that WWE probably paid us because they won all the awards last year. So
yeah, we didn't get as much backlash last year from certain people.
It's kind of weird that we didn't get any backlash at all last year when WWE won all the awards. Kind of strange.
Same voting process too, by the way.
Kind of says more about the people that are complaining more than us.
Yes, but still, we felt let's come on here. Let's discuss a little bit. We're not going to be here all day, but let's just discuss the winners and maybe the runners up, maybe some people that we overlooked. And the first one was storyline of the year. That was the big one. And for me, I knew this was going to come down to one of two. It was probably going to be John Cena's retirement tour, or it was going to be Hangman Adam Page's redemption arc. And it was this man right here, chain and all, Hangman Adam Page's redemption arc that ended up taking the award over John Cena's retirement tour. And for me, I looked at this one, Blake, and I went, it wasn't necessarily the best storyline. But for me, storyline of the year was John Cena's retirement, just because it overtook the pro wrestling industry this year. How many stories, guys, across the board, how many stories weekly did we write about John Cena's retirement? How many dates he's going to have? Who's his final opponent's going to be? What's he going to be talking about? Analyzing every promo. Are they going to allow people from other promotions to come in and talk about and be a part of John Cena's retirement tour? It was everywhere. I kind of looked at this, and this is part of the beauty, I think, of this, because we can look at these different categories and we can analyze them differently. I looked at this kind of like the Times Magazine Person of the Man of the Year award, where I'm like, it's not necessarily the best, but maybe the most influential. I just think that John Cena's retirement tour,
but we're voting on the best, Rick. We're voting on the best.
Dude,
like,
and also,
did it say best? It just said storyline.
But that is what you're voting on. Don't get it twisted.
And also, this John Cena retirement tour was not a storyline. If it was a storyline, I think it would have been better received, truth be told. But it wasn't a storyline. It was a story.
Exactly.
It was a headlining story for the year of wrestling, but it wasn't a storyline. There was very little to no character development within John Cena. In fact, his heel turn and his babyface turn were equally erratic and sudden. So I don't really believe there was much of a storyline. That's why I was really surprised when I saw so many of our panelists put this on their top 5, because I didn't even consider this to be a storyline. Like I had Hangman's redemption leading, and then I had Naomi's turn, which I think was much more of a conducive storyline. But I don't know how you guys feel. I've said this publicly quite a bit. I don't think 2025 was a great year for wrestling storytelling from a storyline perspective in the United States. That's just my opinion.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that, because I feel like the whole reason why AEW was able to turn around their fan perception in a way is because I felt like they had a lot of the stronger stories in North America on wrestling television.
And that's not to say that there weren't any. I'm not saying that.
No. It's just, no. But I just want to mention all the great storylines that they had this year. They had the Hangman redemption arc. They had the Jon Moxley downfall in the second half of the year. They had Timeless Tony Storm and Mariah May. That was 3 of the best storylines to me of 2025, all came from the same company. So that's why I also agree with John. Like, John Cena, if we did a worse storyline of the year, John Cena retirement tour would be number 1 for me, because that was not good. It was not planned out. They did a heel turn, and then they didn't have a follow-up for it. He then cut awful You People promos for the next 4 months. Then he just out of nowhere turns babyface. The second half of the tour was good, but you also had that stinker with Brock Lesnar squashing him at WrestlePalooza. Like, it was so erratic, so all over the place. It was baffling at times, to the point that John Cena had to do a whole media tour where he kept telling us that 90% of the whole thing was pivots. So I don't even know how John Cena's retirement tour could even fathom to be second place here. That was shocking to me, honestly.
Blake, you also went with Hangman's redemption arc on this one too, didn't you?
Well, and I think John brought up the point that I was thinking in my head. I wound up putting Cena like at 4, and the reason why is because I didn't really have a lot else that connected with me personally, right? And that's where like some of this with storyline is going to get very subjective and like what connects with you. I was kind of with John in that I didn't think it was a very strong year, like across the board for like storylines that really connected with me. And I think that's why, again, I struggled to put Cena's on there. I'm like, do I put it on there? Do I not? I wound up putting it at 4. In hindsight, like I could have put it much lower. And again, if you want to kind of debate whether it should have been on there at all, I'm not against that. But I think the thing was like, let's say you are going to go with Cena and say that's a storyline, however you want to play it into the equation here. Okay, let's compare that to like Hangman's. Did I love every single beat of the Hangman redemption arc? I didn't. Not every single beat connected with me. But the overall storyline, way more beats connected with me if I'm going to compare it to Cena's story in any way, shape, or form throughout the year. So I thought that was kind of a no-brainer just for me personally. I even had one that probably a lot of people, if I'm looking down the list, was not as high, and that's like did I love the Vision stuff? No, but like as an old school fan, I love like the CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. These guys absolutely hate each other the entire year, and that just keeps going, right? That's a running theme. That's a story that's always there. So like those were kind of the things that resonated with me the most. But there was probably no planet I would have voted for John Cena ahead of something like Hangman based on an actual on-screen storyline that was told throughout the entire year, like that was.
Our winner for rivalry of the year. We're going to be talking about Hangman.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Rick, you did vote for John Cena's retirement to be the storyline of the year. So I need you to defend that, man. I need you to defend that.
I told you at the beginning, I looked at it a little differently.
You looked at it from the time perspective, but from a story,
I looked at it from overall. I looked at it more as a story of the year kind of thing, just for
so like a news value story rather than a story.
That's how I kind of looked at it more than anything. But as far as the best thing on television, the best story arc, yeah, without question for me, it was Hangman Adam Page. Yeah,
we should.
I can't defend the John Cena booking at all. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't spend the whole time just bashing the John Cena retirement tour. We should talk about the Hangman redemption arc, because I did enjoy pretty much the entire story from January through July of Hangman starting off this year as still stuck in the descent to madness that was that Swerve Strickland rivalry, and not being the person that we all grew to love that was Hangman. And then the rivalry with Christopher Daniels and retiring his mentor and best friend, which really was the cause of that switch being kind of put onto him. And then the rivalry with MJF, where he wanted to prove himself to be the best and better than MJF, and MJF wondering why the fans were cheering for Hangman when Hangman burned someone's house down, and Hangman beating him and proving that he is better than him, and then finding that drive within himself to want to be the world champion again, entering into the Owen Hart Cup, and the whole rivalry with Will Ospreay heading into Double or Nothing, with both of the top baby faces fighting for the right to be the person to save AEW, save the AEW World Championship, take it away from the jail that is the briefcase that Death Riders had it in for the past 10 months. And then that matchup with Jon Moxley at All In Texas, which I thought was the match of the year, in my opinion, which the drama, it was the Avengers Endgame of AEW, with everybody coming together to beat Jon Moxley and the Death Riders. It was the ultimate payoff, one of the greatest payoffs in the company's history, and it was the guy who they defined as the main character of AEW to do it in Texas. The Cowboy wins. It was just so much perfection with the drive and with the lead up to that, and then the payoff itself. So that is well deserving of being the storyline of the year to me.
I also liked the ending of it too. Like, I like the surprise factor of, because I feel like with WWE, and I'm not trying to compare both promotions here, but like Cody, like he wins the title in a very similar fashion at WrestleMania. And then it's like, it felt like his title reign has been an endurance test, where it's just been like, okay, I never really feel like his title reign is ever in jeopardy, at least until he wrestled John Cena at WrestleMania the following year. And it's like, okay, we crowned the guy, so now we have to give him this big long run. I was genuinely surprised when Samoa Joe beat him for the title. And I'm like, okay, they're just going to keep things moving. I kind of like that, keeping it fresh when you have so many of these big main event guys who can be the AEW World Champion. You don't have to have the belt on a guy for 6 months, 8 months, a year. And now look, Samoa Joe drops it 36 days later, and now MJF is getting his turn. And I'm sure Swerve Strickland's going to get his second run here at some point in the near future. So I did like that. Let's give some love to the villain, by the way, in that story. For our rivalry of the year was Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley. When I was thinking about storylines of the year, I do agree with John in the sense that I was kind of struggling to put my top 5 together, particularly thinking back to like storylines in WWE that really kind of resonated with me. But I couldn't help but going back to the Death Riders and thinking back to 2024, how everybody just hated everything that was going on with these guys in particular. And like, in my opinion, heat is heat, but they had like go away heat, like get off of our TV screen. That show that AEW put on was so great, except for the stuff that they did with the Death Riders. It really felt like they were like an anchor that was weighing down AEW, and Tony Khan, to his credit, found a way to turn that around in 2025 to where SP3, now we're looking at Jon Moxley on his own redemption tour, he is one swift act away from being babyface Mox again and being one of the top, good guy draws in the company. And that's part of the reason why everything we talked about with Hangman, Adam, him being the guy to end Jon Moxley's reign, that's part of the reason why those two guys working together turned out to be rivalry of the year for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's well deserved with the buildup that they did to All In Texas, with Hangman being the chosen hero for AEW against the Death Riders and ending the Death Riders' reign of terror. I think that the matchup, the buildup to All In Texas, and the payoff and the whole storytelling with Swerve Strickland being involved and giving the chain to Hangman so he can make Jon Moxley submit. And I thought Jon Moxley's performance in that matchup is one of the all-time great heel performances in a main event that I've ever seen, as far as like being the villain, and then the villain basically having that desperate panic when he knew it was done and it was over with, when he's being hung over the ropes. It was just a masterful job, and it was really them turning something around that was kind of an albatross around this company. I remember Revolution this year, Dynasty this year, those were good to great shows, but everybody said, and then there was the main event and it fell off a cliff and it felt bad, but they were able to turn it around, and the build-up really kind of got the momentum back for AEW. It only lasted for a short time, but it got it back.
You did not vote for Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley as number one, though. You went with Timeless Toni Storm and Mariah May. Why'd you do that?
I think that was objectively better, because I think that the first, I've seen with our voting and other voting for awards, people tend to forget early rivalries early in the year. Sure. You kind of remember the more recent rivalries, or rivalries that last a whole year, like a CM Punk and Seth Rollins, like Blake was saying earlier. But I think Timeless Toni Storm and Mariah May, some of their best moments happened this year when Timeless Toni Storm reveals she's been the rookie. She's been playing a role the whole time in that promo that she had. The go home promo where she sentenced Mariah May to obscurity, which some people think that she is currently in. The Grand Slam build up and her winning back the winning back the AEW Women's World Championship, and then the Hollywood ending, the greatest women's match in AEW history. I had to give that my feud of the year.
Should have been the main event that night. John, you kind of surprised me with your pick. You went Becky and Lyra.
So I did go with Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria. And I'll tell you why I went with this. I didn't go with Hangman and Moxley, even though I did make Hangman's Redemption my storyline of the year, just because if you're truly boiling it down, the Hangman and Moxley rivalry lasted really from the beginning of June, end of May, to end of July, really. Like, that's where that story was contained, and it wasn't very long itself. The actual rivalry, the Hangman story was much larger than that, but the actual rivalry with John was much shorter. So I was going through, like, what could I make the rivalry of the year? And there's certainly a fair argument for Toni Storm and Mariah May. For me, one of the reasons I didn't put that as my number one was because so much of the good stuff did happen in 2024 with it. Not to say that what Sid just talked about at the beginning of the year wasn't great, because I do think a lot of it was. But, the all-in match, the turn, that all happens in 2024, and those were significant parts of that rivalry. So I didn't put it as my number one for that. I went with Becky and Lyra because, and I'm going to say this outright, I think that I maybe overlooked Becky a little bit for these awards, and there's a couple that I wish I could take back because I submitted mine like immediately the moment we started talking about these, and she got better in that month even afterwards. So I looked at Becky and Lyra and I'm like, this was a program that was consistently on TV. It elevated a championship that they were trying to add equity to, and maybe they haven't had the best follow-up with Lyra Valkyria since, but she was like a major player during this feud, and Becky gave her everything. Even though Lyra didn't necessarily come out on top, they laid the groundwork for them to have a return match down the line at some point where I'm sure Lyra will overcome the odds against her. And it put her in the positioning of like, let's see if she can sink or swim here. And I think she swam quite well, and people were very receptive to Lyra Valkyria. So for that reason, I thought the intensity was good. Becky Lynch elevated the belt and the performer, and I enjoyed it. It was one of my more enjoyable parts of WWE TV this year, quite frankly. And, it's just, that's how I looked at it. And I know, Blake, you went with another WWE rivalry as well.
Well, I mentioned like Punk and Rollins, and I think for me, it's not always easy. I think as I get older, but I'm like, I do try to put myself sometimes in the shoe of the fan, of just someone who's not immersed in every little internet report and all this other stuff. But like, I think of the moment at SummerSlam where I'm like, if I'm a fan who hasn't heard the rumors out there that Rollins is faking the injury and all this other stuff, and like, I know, right? It's like the WWE thing that makes you roll your eyes sometimes. All about the moments, pal. Like, it's a great moment, like all this. But it was a pretty good moment. Like, the payoff of having a guy who's willing to go to this length to fake an injury, to get the title off of his arch nemesis and do it in a way that just completely tries to make Punk's world crumble. But, like, that's just one of many, I thought, between, like, Punk and Rollins. And I think the thing is, too, what I tried to factor in, that I love the chemistry between Rollins and Heyman and all that. It felt a little off. And I think, maybe the injury turns out to be kind of a blessing in disguise in terms of how everyone's going to proceed forward. But I still am like, hey, it has elevated Braun Breaker to another level. Bronson Reed gets singles wins over Roman Reigns. Like, are you kidding me? Like, none of us a year ago probably were
I don't know if you knew
expecting
this.
that.
He beat Okada. People are saying this.
So
People are
it's
saying
like, I mean, so I'm just like, I think of it that way, I guess. And so, again, it's maybe kind of the old school nature of just guys who are going to perpetually always feel like they hate each other. Like, I'm always going to, and again, that's kind of like the Hangman Moxley thing, although, I'm sure at some point, maybe it's, they get back on the same page for a minute or two. But yeah, so I really enjoyed the Punk Rollins stuff. And that's really been, you could call it like of the year, but it's really been since Punk came back. Like, they've continued to kind of feed that beast for several years now. So
I got a hot take. I think Becky and Lyra was significantly better than Seth and Punk. I feel like Seth and Punk peaked after WrestleMania for me, because and I think it's mainly because not only do I have to look at things from a fan perspective, I have to actually analyze stuff. And I've watched Monday Night Raw and done a review for it for all 52 weeks. And boy, oh boy, did division stuff drag the hell out. And they kept doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. It got to the point by the time we got to the fall with Seth and Punk, I was like, this is borderline John Cena and Randy Orton back in 2009, where they're just going to keep feuding. They're going to keep facing each other. And then they didn't even want to give us a singles match between them. And then they waited too long and Seth got injured before we even got a world title match. I think Becky and Lyra was significantly well booked. They added in other people like Bayley, and Bayley was able to get something out of that. It elevated the Intercontinental Championship. Becky Lynch was the best character and had some of the best promos of the year from WWE, and it elevated Lyra Valkyria in the process, and it never dragged in the way that Seth and Punk did for me.
And just listening to you guys talk about it, like, you're right, and I do kind of wish I could go back and because I didn't even have that in my top 5. And I think maybe it part of that comes down to it happened earlier in the year, and I kind of more recency bias towards some other things. So maybe we need to have like a pre-discussion in person before we vote next year, so I don't have these voting regrets at the end of it. But I wish I would have put that in my top 5. Our heel turn of the year.
Oh boy.
This was, I think, every writer on staff either put 1 Naomi or 2 John Cena, or vice versa. So it was going to come down to one of those two, and Naomi ultimately did win this. And I think this is another one of those kind of like where I looked at storyline of the year differently. I think this is one where we kind of looked at this. Some of us looked at the heel turn, the moment itself, and I think some of us looked at the overall follow-up and added that into it as well, because we didn't have a heel run category. We had a heel turn category. And so, yeah, I can kind of see where people would look at the overall arc of what happened after John turned and what happened after Naomi turned. Clearly, Naomi's was better. Clearly, Naomi was doing some of the best character work. She was doing the best character work she has ever done in WWE, period, end of story. Those in-ring promo exchanges with her and Bianca, where they have like tears flowing down their face. I'm like, you could have been doing this with her the whole time, and you had her feuding over who cheated in a karaoke contest, you bastard. Like, it pissed me off. It was so good. In that case, yes, overall arcing, yeah, I would have gone with Naomi. I ended up voting with John because that was just such a monumental moment, Blake, which one did you end up going with?
Naomi. And the reason why is I think I didn't think it would be this complicated as it seems out there to understand like why I think Naomi was the better choice. But I also am like, we have had how many parties involved in this turn with John Cena flat out tell us in numerous interviews there was no reason behind doing this other than just to shock people. And so
sell some
if
tickets, that was it.
And that's great. Like they sold a lot of tickets this year. Well, wonderful. But like for that one event, like to me, and again, this is where you're not going to be able to convince, I think, some people that this is just, it's okay to look at it two different ways here. But like, I just could not, if we are picking the heel turn of the year, the one that is just hey, I mean, I feel like it's kind of like, okay, it is kind of like the best heel turn of the year, right? We have to look at it that way if I'm voting it. So I cannot sit there and listen to John Cena himself and other parties and The Rock on Pat McAfee and give this big spiel about this master plan that never played out because he's never appeared since then with John Cena whatsoever. And that somehow convinces me that that was a great heel turn. I don't care how many people watched it. Like, sure, they'll play it for the next decade upon decade upon decade, and that's fine. But from a quality standpoint, I could not vote John Cena's over Naomi's. So
yeah, too many cooks in the kitchen just absolutely ruined that one for sure. John, which way did you go?
Yeah, I went with Naomi too, and this was another no-brainer for me. When I hear heel turn, I don't look at it as a moment. I look at it as an arc from the moments leading up to it and the moments that come after it. And the actual physical turn itself is the critical climax of it. But I try to view pro wrestling in the grand scheme of what are these characters' motivations? Are they driven in a way that they make sense? And is the follow-up reflective of the breadcrumbs that you laid before that? And I look at that arc, and Naomi's, even if it was predictable, which I think a lot of people did see it coming, it was really well executed. There was like a 6-month build leading to it. Then you have the actual moment itself. And on top of that, she becomes the champion, which is a really, really great indicator that this was successful. And the manner in which she became champion too was great. I really thought that this was on pace to be, and it may have even been a career year for Naomi, regardless of it ending early. And if there was a moment of the year category, which maybe, look, next year we have to add a moment of the year, no, without question, John Cena's actual turn itself, there's a handful of moments in wrestling history bigger than that.
Yeah.
But the actual arc, to me, it was just a no-brainer that Naomi's had so much more equity.
And I mean, think about this too. Like, this is something that I brought up at the time as I thought should have been heralded as a much bigger thing. Like, that led to a non-title women's singles match at WrestleMania. Yeah. That doesn't happen. It doesn't. The last time that happened was what, WrestleMania 20 something, and it was a Playboy pillow fight. The last time that there was a non-title women's singles fight. So like, that was monumental. The fact that led to that. And then, yes, she won the championship at Evolution in what was a spectacular main event between Io and Rhea. I was there in person.
In a legitimately shocking moment, by the way, that nobody saw coming.
No. And, you know, we'll when we get to show of the year, I'll talk about that as well. But SB3, you're on board with Naomi as well, obviously.
Yeah, I had Naomi as number one, and I agree with John. I think that we should have probably had it at a moment of the year, and then the John Cena heel turn would be the biggest moment of 2025. I think the only thing that's probably going to be in the conversation with that would probably be Hangman taking the title out of the briefcase. Those are the two biggest moments, two best moments of the year when it comes to professional wrestling. But the heel turn and the heel run of Naomi, I think, is the reason why she won this award, because it was set up beautifully. Like John said, they had 6 months of this, or a couple of months of this whole mystery of who attacked Jade Cargill back in November. And we had the teases that it could be Naomi. For a while, you think it's Liv and Raquel. Some people were thinking that it was Bianca Belair. And then Jade comes back at Elimination Chamber and she just beats the crap. out of Naomi to start that matchup. That's a great moment. But the promo where she reveals her real motivation for everything and tears going down her face. I remember I had my post about that promo went viral because I had so many people either disagreeing or agreeing with me, where I said Naomi's the best character in this company right now. After that one promo, I said it. I was like, it's over. She's the best character in this whole company because she had real motivation behind it. She was trying to protect a friend. So she is a heel who has like honest motivations behind it, where she feels like she's doing it for Bianca's sake because she feels like Jade is holding her down. Oh, it was just so great. And then the promo,
Sid, the reveal was different too, right? Like we're so used to the trope of it was me, I did it, and here it was like Jade marches in, it was you, and like I mean that like,
and then her breaking down where she's crying, and then she looks up and she's like,
really well
yes,
done.
I did it.
It was really well done. It was.
You want to talk about moment of the year, by the way, like. When she is getting her ass beat against the chamber glass, and it's Bianca's chamber glass, and Bianca's like losing her mind.
No.
Oh my god, it was so good.
Stuff. It was good stuff.
Man, that damn broken knuckle robbed us of some really good stuff over the summer. I think it was such a shame that Bianca ended up missing most of this year, because I can't imagine what those two would have done if they were allowed to elongate this past WrestleMania. I believe this might be the only one where all four of us voted for the same first place vote. Mike of the year, best on Mike, Timeless Tony Storm. To me, this wasn't even a competition, and yet there were people online who were disagreeing.
Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead, Blake. Go ahead.
Blake
did not vote for Tony
did he
Storm.
not? No, okay, I'm sorry.
No, but continue, because I'll follow up after you make your argument here.
Well, look, just for me, from an entertainment standpoint alone, there is one person all year long where if they are announced that they are going to have a microphone in their hand, it was appointment viewing for me, and it was Timeless Tony Storm. She found a way, like she just has a genuine way with words. She knows this character to a T. She knows how to get a pop out of a crowd, but it's not only just, oh, I'm going to say dirty words and have sexual innuendos. Like, her promos have a point to them. She has this psychological warfare that she does where she like metaphorically undresses her opponents before she beats their ass at these pay-per-views. And just from a pure entertainment standpoint, Timeless Tony Storm delivered over and over and over again. And I say that as somebody who loves Becky Lynch and loves how many times Becky Lynch mentioned Sports Illustrated this year. Like, I think this was a really good category. To me, Timeless Tony was obviously the number one, but Hangman Adam Page had a really good year on the mic. Mark Briscoe had a really good year on the mic. Becky Lynch had a great year on the mic as well. But Blake, you did not go with Nate. Or excuse me, you did not go with Timeless Tony Storm.
I went with Becky. I just and kind of, I'm glad you guys talked up the Becky and Lyra feud so much, because like this is a perfect segue into like, I thought she was just fantastic this year, like truly, and you know, she has a year that, I mean, who else could say that, going back to the WrestleMania main event and all that, but like if you set that aside for a second, like I just think she's been so good this year, and that's not just the hey because she says Sports Illustrated all the time, like you said, like it's just if you watch like week to week. And just the promo exchanges she's had with people that, I mean, again, it's like even the stuff with like Maxine, like you see where Maxine is at now, like some of the stuff with Nikki Bella, like these were things that Becky is just, she's on another level, in my opinion. And I think that's where, like, when you think about how this journey started earlier in the year, her coming back, she makes the turn, and like she's just off from there and has embraced this new character and to a level that I think, again, she has just been awesome. And, you know, look, Tony Storm has been outstanding, but I just, when I compared the two, I really did just say, hey, I think Becky is at the top. And, you know, I'm not saying there's a huge gap there, but maybe that's just me just really loving what Becky Lynch did this year.
It's not just you, Blake, because this is one of those where I love Toni Storm. I think she's like a generationally great talent. I really do believe that. But this is one where if I didn't write my nominees when I wrote them, and if I had another month to really marinate it, I'm probably changing my vote, because I think in the last month alone, even Becky Lynch has totally elevated to like another level, and leaning into the whole tapping out stuff and speaking with conviction with a much more believable heel character than the first time we saw around a few years ago. I have no argument against anything you're saying. And while I did vote for Toni Storm, and I don't regret voting for Toni Storm by any stretch of the imagination, because she is outstanding, like Rick said, I probably would be changing my vote if I had that extra month, truth be told.
SB3, your top two were Toni Storm and Becky Lynch here.
Yeah, this was a toss-up for me as well. I think at one point I did have Becky at number one, and I was like, I don't want to be called biased because I kind of gave her gimmick this year. So, so I don't want to be biased.
Oh
I
my
think,
goodness!
I think this
your
is
check
this
clear.
It didn't, because I didn't put her number one. But I think this is a conversation of like longevity versus peak. And, you know, you have that conversation in basketball of who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James. LeBron James has the longevity. Michael Jordan has the peak. If you talk about professional wrestling, I think Stone Cold Steve Austin is the GOAT because he has the greatest peak ever. But some people will say John Cena because of the longevity. I think that with Becky Lynch, I think she was more consistently great throughout the entire year from when she comes back at WrestleMania. She turns into this kind of bringing up the kind of meta commentary about her world title reign from last year of being Becky Hogan and holding down the rest of the roster and saying that she's gonna basically go into it and just hold down the rest of the roster. And the promos with Lyra, that elevated Lyra, the promos with Bayley. I think our best work was the promos with CM Punk and AJ Lee heading into WrestlePalooza. Those were incredible. And like John said, even her promo work with Maxine Dupree has been great, where she's leaning more into this politician type impression that she's doing on the mic and stuff like that. So I think if you're talking about consistently,
to be fair, her best line came with Nikki Bella.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was a pipe bomb on Nikki Bella. But yeah, I think as far as consistency throughout the year, the Becky would have had it. But I think that the highs of Toni Storm, like I said before, the sentencing Mariah made to obscurity, even after Revolution, when she cuts the promo and tells the rest of the women's locker room, throw your keys in the bowl and get ready for this orgy. Her on commentary, her promos against Mercedes Moné heading into All In Texas, her promos with Athena heading into Forbidden Door. It's just so high, and I don't think we've ever seen two women's wrestlers who are better talkers than Becky Lynch and Timeless Toni Storm, and we got them both in this year at a high level. So if you had one or the other as the best on the mic, that says a lot. And this is an all-time year when it comes to two women on the mic in pro wrestling.
And isn't it amazing that Toni just sat on that skill set for so long?
Well, I remember when I talked to Saraya back in March for here on the Takedown on SI, and she talked about Toni, like when they were in the Outcasts together, like she always had like the least amount of lines to say between Saraya and Ruby. They did a lot of the talking, and Toni would agonize, like literally agonize over like the one or two sentences that she had to say on the mic. To go from that to where she is now is remarkable. It's incredible that she has flourished like this in such a relatively short amount of time and has become one of the best talkers in the game. And I think, and this is saying something, the most entertaining woman in professional wrestling right now. Boy, best in ring, guys. This one was tight, and like it ended up going to Will Ospreay. I think there's an argument you could make for 5, 6, 7 different people, honestly, to win this. Like so many there's just some really, really incredible matches this year. And by the way, like the vote totals on some of these categories were incredibly tight. We'll get to tag team of the year and we'll tell you how tight that one ended up being. This one came down to, if memory serves correct, I believe Will Ospreay and Io Sky. It was really close between the two of them. Now, this is where, you know, when you talk about the best in pro wrestling, it really is subjective. It's all about, you know, what you prefer. For the longest time, I have been a mark for women's wrestling. That is my main gig. That is what I tune into shows for. That is why I went to Evolution instead of All in Texas, right? Like that was, as soon as that show was announced, I was like, I am going to be in Atlanta for that show. Io Sky, for my money, has been the best bell-to-bell performer in WWE for quite some time. I think her body of work this year was absolutely tremendous. I went with her over the likes of Hangman Adam Page and Will Ospreay, again, because I'm more of a women's wrestling fan, and I think her body of work is on par with them. I know you guys went different directions. SP3, did you go with Will Ospreay? Which way did you go here?
This is like the first time I think in many years I don't think I had Will Ospreay in my top 5. I don't know. I got to double check that, but I think that Will had an exceptional 8-month run in pro wrestling with the steel cage matchup against Kyle Fletcher, the matchup against Hangman Adam Page at Double or Nothing, the All In Texas tag team matchup. But I think that Bandito had the best year of anyone in the ring, because I think that he was able to do it on AEW television every single week on Dynamite when he was being featured.
You had Ospreay at number 5.
Okay, so I had Ospreay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure where I had him or not, but thankfully I did have him in my top 5 because Will is a friend. I'm sorry, Will. But Bandito, I just think he just had the best year because he had multiple match of the year candidates, whether it's against Takeshita at Supercard of Honor, whether it's against Masquerade Dorada in Arena Mexico. He had a banger of a matchup with Mystico in Arena Mexico, the ROH World Title matches with Hechicero, the Survival of the Fittest at Final Battle. But just him and Brodito, I think they had one of the best years of any tag team as well, and really kind of were the reason of a revitalization of the tag team division in AEW. So whether it was tag team action, multi-man action, singles action, Bandito did it, and he did it in AEW, CMLL, and ROH. I'm sorry, I think he had it. And then second place, I had Konosuke Takeshita, because he's another guy who did it on multiple different platforms and had multiple match of the year candidates with Zack Sabre Jr., with Will Ospreay at Spring Breakthrough, the matches and the storyline with Okada, whether it was All Out with Masquerade Dorada or the tag team match with Brodito or at Wrestle Dream. Like, I think Takeshita had it, and I had Io at number 3 because Io Sky was amazing for WWE, by far the best in-ring worker in WWE this year.
To your point, SP3, if there was one person I wish we could have highlighted more in our overall awards, it was Bandito. I do think he had an absolutely tremendous year. Blake, you did go with Will Ospreay at number 1.
Well, and I think that says something, right? Given the fact that the guy hasn't wrestled since August.
26 matches.
Still,
26 matches.
I think that to me kind of said it all. Is like I look back at the body of work, and even in comparing against people who have had more matches and have wrestled longer throughout the year, I just thought the highs were what won it in terms of just the consistency, the highest of highs that we saw this year in some of the matches with him. And again, like obviously in match of the year candidates, there's multiple options with him. And so, yeah, I mean, and I feel like it was, SP3 just mentioned it. Like when you look at that group of Ospreay, Takeshita, Io, like Bandito, Kyle Fletcher, like Hangman, like pretty good year when you're talking about like if that's your top tier and knowing kind of the matches that group put together. And there are more beyond that, but yeah, I went with Ospreay.
John, you went with Ospreay as well, yeah?
It wasn't even a question for me that Will Ospreay was the wrestler of the year, frankly. And it was an amazing in-ring year for a lot of wrestlers. Takeshita was my number 2. Io Sky was my number 3, followed by Hangman and Bandito. But I believe Will Ospreay right now is on a run in terms of quality akin to the run that Kenny Omega had in 2017, 2018, that cemented him as the best wrestler in the world at that time. And the different dynamics that Ospreay brings to each match, where he has his skill set and his signature stuff that he does, but he works to his opponents in ways to elevate them, sell for them, showcase what they bring to the table, and tell an incredible in-ring story throughout the course of each bout is, to me, it's unparalleled by anyone in wrestling right now. The cage match with Fletcher, which you could go either way with it. Maybe they went a little too far with the amount of violence that they had for it and the stipulation, but it was mind-blowing, right? To me, which I'm sure we'll talk about momentarily, the match with Hangman Adam Page at Double or Nothing was one of the greatest matches in AEW history. And then to shift that and be a tag guy at All In and put on arguably the greatest tag match in company history, he is like a chameleon who can shapeshift to whatever role you need him for and do it at an extremely high level. There are so many talented stars in wrestling right now. There are only probably 3 or 4 for me personally that every time they're on screen, I need to see what they do. And Will Ospreay is one of those people for me.
We had our breakout star of the year as well that went to AEW. And this is another one where I think there were multiple choices that you could have gone. We ended up going with Kyle Fletcher, who I think, in-ring quality, the development of his character, the elevation of his stature within AEW, like he really did put together a great year. And he's a guy that I went with number 1 overall at the time. Rethinking, it's one of those ones where I did lock it in and I was comfortable with my decision, but Dominic Mysterio had a great year, broke out as well. Bandito's another guy I think maybe I should have put up a little bit higher. I am genuinely surprised, and maybe this has more to do with her booking, that there weren't more votes for Stephanie Vaquer, considering everything that she has at least accomplished as far as winning the NXT Women's Championship, NXT Women's North American Championship, and Women's World Heavyweight Championship, all within her first year of being in WWE. I had her at my number 2, but just like overall body of work, I mean, Tony Khan is definitely in the Kyle Fletcher business. He is going to be a main event star for AEW sooner rather than later. I think any one of those people could have won it. Kyle Fletcher ultimately did go in that direction. Did anybody else go with Kyle Fletcher? Yes, SP3, you did.
Yeah, I definitely did. Kyle Fletcher, some people will say, I thought Kyle Fletcher's breakout was in 2024 because he turned heel, but he turns heel in October. He has that big win over Ospreay in November. So really his breakout starts at the tail end of 2024, but we really get the fruits of the labor in this year with the culmination of his rivalry with Will Ospreay. Some people forget that banger of a matchup, that tag team match with Fletcher and Takeshita versus Omega and Ospreay in Australia. And then the steel cage matchup, I think, is one of the best steel cage matches I've ever seen. And AEW just does steel cage matches the right way, where they keep it inside the cage, no escape the cage BS. It's a violent war, and you got it there with memorable
No, they
moments,
just got a ton of weapons from outside the cage for that.
Yeah, match. that too. But I the one spot that I remember from that matchup is Kyle Fletcher taking a Styles clash to the dick into thumbtacks. He got thumbtacks to his dick, and then him saying, I hate you as he gets hidden blade at the end. It's just those great moments, and we saw him like grow as a performer, where he went from this upper mid card kind of rising a star to a legitimate bona fide future main eventer by like the fall, when he main events All Out with a match of the year candidate against Hangman Adam Page. He had that great moment where he took out Kenny Omega ahead of that matchup, winning the TNT championship and really giving us the first great TNT title reign since Christian Cage 2 years ago, because the TNT title has been in the doldrums for 2 years, and Kyle Fletcher finally gave us a reign that we can finally remember. And then he paid it off with another excellent match of the year candidate against Mark Briscoe, and all the great matches against Mark Briscoe this year. Kyle Fletcher just delivered in the ring. He got better on the mic. He became a full-fledged character with the Say My Full Name, the proto star Kyle Fletcher. And then the Don Callis family stuff is like the cherry on top. He was the obvious pick for me, but I did give some consideration to Dominic Mysterio, because I think that him becoming the Eddie Guerrero Live Cheat and Steal character US champion from back in 2003 as the IC champion this year was one of the great character evolutions in WWE throughout 2025. So that was my second place.
Blake, you went with Jey Uso at number
I went
one.
with someone that not a single other person on the panel voted for in their top 5 in any location. So
No,
He got 5 points though. He's on the board.
I gave him 5 points.
He won a
all
world
right?
title this year. That's got to be worth something.
And WrestleMania, he made Gunther tap out.
So listen, that's why I
all those
voted for him. In all honesty, I had Fletcher and Dominic like 2 and 3.
Jinder Mahal won a world title too, Blake. So it doesn't say.
Well, but you know what? I think there's a little more longevity with Jay. I think he sold a little bit more merch. So he had a catchphrase, 4 letters, 1 word, eat. But listen, that's why I picked him at 1. I'm not gonna lie. Like when I was comparing, and I realize it's gonna sound ridiculous to some people, but I'm like, he won the Royal Rumble. He won the world title at WrestleMania. Like, I mean, he sold a shit ton of merchandise. Like,
Sure did.
I'm
He
just
sure
like,
did. You're not wrong.
break out from where he was previously. I think he went from wherever he was, wherever you want to put him. Yes, he had technically probably broken out the year before, like his stock had risen and all that. But I don't know, man. I was just like, I don't see anybody else that's on that level of raising to that. And while I know it was not the greatest, the in-ring, if this was breakout in-ring wrestler, he wouldn't get it. But just the overall, the way it encapsulates just, hey, you're breakout wrestler of the year, breakout superstar, whatever, like, Jay had the highest of anyone.
I will say that I thought he had his moment as a singles wrestler when he won the IC title. I was like, okay, that's a great little nod for him. That's awesome. I remember standing there in Lucas Oil Stadium with Zach Haydorn on our staff, and we're getting ready to go off to the press conference back when they still had those. And we're watching the final little bit of the Royal Rumble, and it's coming down to John and it's coming down to Jay. And I looked over at Zach. I was like, it's really cool that they're rewarding Jay with this spot here. It's really nice that, he's going to finish second to John. And then he shoves John to the floor, and my jaw hit the damn floor. And I'm like, I did not see that coming at all. I forget which one of us was writing like the main event story and who had to completely redo that story as they probably.
I think I wrote that.
I
think I wrote it because I was at
No
home for that.
sympathy.
I will say Blake makes a good point. No one broke out or got higher up the card than Jey Uso, and no one fell down the card as much as Jey Uso because now he's back in the tag team. So
yeah,
that's a good point too. I'm not going to deny that. So.
Listen, this category, there were a lot of people you could have gone with, and I don't think you would have necessarily made a wrong choice. I have no problem with Kyle Fletcher winning it because on the AEW side, he is the breakout wrestler of the year. I wavered between he and Dominic, and I ended up going with Dominic just because I think we entered the year with Dominic. It's like, this guy is a great character. He's funny. He's entertaining. What's his ceiling? And this year he proved he's going to be a world champion one day. Like, it's going to happen for him. If it could happen for Jay, it's going to happen for him. And I believe he provided the most wholesome moment of Cena's entire retirement tour when Cena beat him in Boston. And for that match to be as successful as it was, it had to be Dom under those circumstances with that exact type of match. It had to be. And watching that match, I was like, this is as perfect of a TV match as you can have with John Cena in 2025. It was artistic. And you combine the fact that he had a really nice run in AAA this year too, where he added a lot of equity to AAA and what they needed for sure. And I believe that he is going to be one of the top tier players for WWE moving forward as we go into 2026. And if you would ask me who my pick to win Money in the Bank is going to be, my very early pick, I'm probably going with Dominic Mysterio at this stage in the game, just because he's proven like the fans care about him, whether they want to boo him or cheer him, they care about him. And that's got to be worth something.
He got as big a pop at WrestleMania when he won the IC title as Jey Uso did when he won the World Heavyweight Championship. It was an insane crowd reaction. Our comeback performer of the year went to Ilya Dragunov. And I will say one thing about Ilya Dragunov. What he has done in a short amount of time, coming off of a major knee injury, is nothing short of remarkable. This man came back and immediately just said, y'all want your 5-star matches? Here are your damn 5-star matches. Give me Axiom. Give me Nathan Frazier. Give me Sami Zayn. Give me Tommaso Ciampa. I'm going to burn the house down and instantly become the most must-see thing on Friday Night SmackDown. Low bar, but I'm going to become the most must-see thing on Friday Night SmackDown. And he had a short but very impactful reign as the Men's United States Champion. And I understand why ultimately he won this award, even though he's only been back for a couple of months, because his body of work in the ring has been incredible.
Isn't he the only winner that did not get a first place vote? I just skimmed through it. No one put him at number 1, but he still won. That's an accomplishment within itself.
A cumulative score. That's again.
Yeah.
So yeah, a cumulative score. He was consistently in the top 2 or 3, but you are right. Nobody voted him number 1. For me, and for a lot of reasons that we have already discussed on the show for other categories, by far Becky Lynch should have won this award. By far, Becky
it's kind
Lynch
of crazy.
won this award.
Like I had her at 2. I had Bandito at 1. I've talked about it before. Bandito coming back from injury and putting on the year that he did and being one of the best in-ring wrestlers of the year, in my opinion, the best in-ring wrestler of the year. He got my number 1, but Becky Lynch was number 2 with a bullet because Becky Lynch has just been phenomenal as a character. It's so entertaining throughout the year.
It was you don't know what you have until it's gone. Like there were so many WWE fans who were just like disenfranchised with her in May 2024 when she went away. She immediately comes back, and she could have been put in the main event scene, won the Women's World Championship or WWE Women's Championship, and been at the top of the card and just kept that main event scene up there. But no, she comes back, and like John said, she elevates Lyra Valkyria. She elevates the Women's Intercontinental Championship. She delivers some of the best promo work that we've seen of this year. She goes out of her way to try to put as many women over as she can. Even when she wins, she's trying to put them over. And she just means so much to the division. She means so much to WWE. They trust her enough to, help round out a Nikki Bella and get her back into, her Hall of Fame, stature. They trusted her with AJ Lee's first match back. Like they just put her in these positions. They trust her to go into the ring, go toe to toe on the microphone with CM Punk. Like she is just on another level, and she makes the company overall better. And her return at WrestleMania was monumental because frankly, we didn't know if it was going to happen. Like we didn't know. There was no guarantees when her contract expired last summer that she was going to come back. She could be in Hollywood doing whatever the hell she wants. There are other creative avenues that she could be doing right now. She chose to come back and help out the women's division. And to me, far and away, John, and I know you agree, she should have been come back before.
This was a no-brainer, and I was pretty heated that she actually didn't win this award, quite frankly, because I was like, man. And I put Ilya Dragunov as 2 as a way of giving like a nod to him. I did not think at all that it was going to be a situation where he would end up winning. I figured almost unanimously across the board it would be Becky Lynch, but that did not end up being the case. And I don't have an issue with Bandito being on this. Like Bandito had a hell of a comeback here. Truth be told, if John Cena's first half of the year is as good as his second half of the year, John Cena probably wins this award.
Yeah,
but it just wasn't. That's the reality of it. So to me, Becky checked off everything on the grade sheet that I'm looking for in someone who's making a comeback and what they do. I'd mentioned that list of like 4 performers that I have to tune in every time they're doing something. She's on that list for me.
Blake, you didn't even vote for 5 people for this award. But,
I was about to say, don't everyone blame me if you didn't want Dragunov to be the person, because it looks like I forgot to go beyond number 3. And so I had Becky at 1, Bandito at 2. I had Charlotte Flair and Alexa at 3, which I think is worthy of being on this. But it turns out I forgot to finish the list. So I should have all the voting.
I should have sent you a message. That was my bad.
Forgot. I'm sorry.
But I was very surprised, but I'm not mad at Ilya winning it. Just for the simple fact that he has been great since he has come back.
He made SmackDown somewhat watchable, so we have to give him credit for that. So
hey, don't worry, they're going to 3 hours, so they're really gonna it's really gonna get better here. I have faith. I have faith. They're gonna utilize the talent that they got, and they're really gonna make that 3rd hour great. I hope, because I do the
You're on the live results every SmackDown.
I already am. Don't remind me.
What are live results?
Whatever.
Our tag team of the year. This was the closest vote that we had by far. FTR ended up winning it with 31 points. There they are, the top guys, the tag team champions right now. The Young Bucks and Brodito each had 30. It was incredibly, incredibly close. And look, I think if either of those three teams won, I think they ended up, them and the Hardys, I think were all in my top 4. This was like a Yahtzee can for me. You could have shaken it up, throw them out. 1 through 4, I would have been fine with any of those guys. I think they all had really, really, really great years. Trying to find who I ended up going with. I ended up going with the Young Bucks. I had the Hardys at number 2 and FTR at 3, and then Brodito at 4, and Charlexa at 5 to round out, because I really do think that their dynamic works really well together. And Alexa Bliss, to her credit, she helped pull out a miracle. Charlotte Flair is likable now to the WWE universe, and that is not something that I ever thought would be. That is something that Charlotte never thought was possible. When they were cheering for her at Evolution, she literally turned around and was like, "What the fuck? Are they cheering for me right now?" So they deserve some credit for what they have done as well. Again, I don't think I could sit here and tell you today why I put the Young Bucks 1 and shuffled up those 4 the way that I did. I think that was just how I was feeling in that particular afternoon. John, you might be a little biased on this one. Admittedly, you did go with the Hardys. I know you're really close to the Hardys, but they did have a really, really great year.
I tried to be as objective as possible with this, because I'm not one of those people that watches the Hardys. I'm like, that's the best in-ring tag team of 2025, because they're not. I also think for their age, the Hardys still put on pretty good TV matches when all is said and done. And if you put them in there with a really, really great team, you're going to get a really good match out of it. And I thought the Hardys had some really good matches on TV this year. There were some that weren't quite as good, but I don't have an issue with FTR winning this award. FTR was by far the best in-ring tag team of the year, in my opinion, with the Young Bucks and Brodito right there behind them. But to me, like, if you're talking about the tag team that like defined wrestling in 2025, PWI went with the Hardys as their number 1. And that's because the Hardys were the biggest draw in tag team wrestling in 2025. The Hardys are the reason TNA got a new television deal. I want to make that very clear. Like, the Hardys, Joe Hendry, and a little bit of Mike Santana are the reason that TNA got a new television deal. When we turn the page on this chapter of TNA, we're going to look back and say, the Hardys are probably the primary reason that TNA was able to elevate itself in that capacity. The Hardys went to NXT. They won the NXT championships and tried their damnedest to work with Dark State and elevate those guys. They had the great match with Fraxium earlier in the year. These guys at 47 or 48 and 51 years old are working indies several times a month. They're having the biggest crowds of any tag team in the world right now. They worked far more than anyone their age in wrestling this year. And again, I'm trying to be as objective as I can about it. Sure, I have a closer view to it, but this was one to me. It's like, sure, they were not the best in-ring talent in tag team wrestling this year, but they basically sold out Bound for Glory. That was their match that people were buying to see. They elevated TNA substantially. They got to work WWE. They're working the indies, elevating those tag teams on there. And the equity that they carry is unmatched by any tag team in wrestling right now. So that's why I went with them as number 1. And FTR was my number 2. And I don't have any issue with FTR winning, because FTR had a great year. And after the heel turn, really found their juice and their mojo. And Stokely ended up being a good piece of that package too.
Stokely is a fantastic piece to that package. And SP3, you did go with FTR.
Yeah, this was a shuffle for me, because I think the first time that I wrote down my top 5, I did put the Young Bucks, because they literally, them and Jon Moxley have this theory of, they both decided in 2024, oh, we're going heel, so we got to stop wrestling good to basically get heat. And then 2025 came and they returned at Dynasty, and then they just started having great matches again. The matchups on TV against like Jet Speed, their performance in the Anarchy in the Arena, them basically doing the broke butts gimmick following the loss against Swerve and Ospreay, which was by far, in my opinion, the best tag team match of the entire year at All in Texas. And then just throughout the second half of the year in multi-man action, whether it be tag team action, the Young Bucks just delivered. But FTR got the vote for me, because I feel that was no better heel act in the industry than FTR and Stokely Hathaway. It was like I was watching a 2025 version of a black Jim Cornette with the Midnight Express, and that's Stokely Hathaway and FTR. It was basically like that. They just created magic together of two two acts that you didn't know would mesh so well together, and they were just great. Some of the most entertaining promos of the year, the rivalry with Cope and Christian, the matches with Brodito, they just always delivered inside the ring. FTR more than deserving of being tag team of the year. But John makes a great point. Hardys were the biggest draw in tag team wrestling and the biggest draw in TNA, and they did have great matches with Fraxium. They had a good matchup with Dark State after they didn't have a good match on TV. They had a good match with them at Halloween Havoc. Like, they were able to always over exceed and over deliver every time out. That's my one regret, that I should have probably put them in my top 5. I went with my other 2 was Brodito at 3. I went with the Knockout Brothers from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Only me and Lyric watch New Japan Pro Wrestling, it seems, but the Knockout Brothers are the hottest act in New Japan Pro Wrestling, so I had to give them some shine, some love there. And I went with Jet Speed at number 5 because I was most entertained by that group. And also, I did interview them right after they both signed, and I put them together spiritually.
Blake, you went with Brodito.
Well, listen, I want to say too, like, Guido Ice, I mean, I absolutely love the guy. Like, I probably don't watch every single thing, but like what I have watched and try to get to, like, I love it. I think if I wish I would have found a spot for them on my list, because again, very enjoyable. I just think, man, with Brodito, again, like, it's kind of like the Osprey thing where it's like consistency and just, I mean, I feel like every single time I'm watching them, and again, like, remember, this is like it feels like initially it's like, okay, it's a thrown together duo that you're trying to see, all right, what's the chemistry like the pairing, you never know how that stuff's going to work out. But they were just tremendous. I mean, they've just been tremendous, all year in terms of when it started. When did they form? Was it April, May?
It's like May, like
it wasn't terribly long before All In.
Yeah. So I'm like, that's not, I mean, again, you're missing out on several months there earlier in the year, but I just think they were so good from that point on. The team too that unfortunately they got sucked into the SmackDown vortex, but like Fraxium, you brought it up, like, they had such a strong start to the year. They're building off a great year last year, of course, but they had a lot of good stuff in the middle. They're part of the TLC match, all that, and then they just didn't get booked. Like, it's just all of a sudden we go to 2 hours and see you later, Fraxium. Like,
the entire SmackDown tag team division went by, except for 2 teams.
I think it's a pretty damning indictment on WWE that 2 of their best TV matches this year were the TLC on SmackDown and that SummerSlam TLC, and there's nothing to say about any of these tag teams. And it's not really the performer's fault per se. These teams just aren't showcased. Tag team wrestling just doesn't matter in WWE right now, which is so crazy because the Triple H NXT era, every single show started with a white hot tag team match. And it was such an integral part of those stories. And they're just not a part of the storytelling anymore.
Surprisingly,
didn't Fraxium win last year, or was close to winning last year?
They won last year. They did win last year.
And last year, to be fair, was also a terrible year for tag team wrestling in general. It was bad across the board. Whereas this year, across all the companies, was way stronger, which is good. Because guess what? Tag team wrestling is arguably the best kind of wrestling for any fan to be able to buy into, because we all identify with that hero struggling to save the day. And it's the true linchpin of pro wrestling, and I really hope in 2026 all these promotions put a big focus on tag team wrestling.
I mean, it's very surprising to me that WWE is putting more effort into the women's tag team division than either of the 2 men's tag team divisions right now, which is, again, I love it, but like, there's some great men's tag teams that deserve some love, and that's where I'm hoping that 3rd hour on SmackDown will come in handy, and we'll start seeing the Street Profits and Fraxium and these teams wrestling on a regular basis again. All right, match of the year. This one was a split vote, obviously. Hangman Adam Page had 2 sensational matches that scored a lot of points, split the panel vote, and opened up the door for our winner here, which was the women's triple threat match at WrestleMania between Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, and Io Sky, not pictured here. This is the match that I went with as my number 1. And again, I will throw this out. Subjective. I am a women's wrestling mark, and to me, this was about as perfect as a triple threat match as you could put on the grandest stage. I've watched this match repeatedly. Like, I could go through this with a fine-tooth comb, and I could find maybe one single solitary mistake where Rhea got her like wrist locked up on trying to lock in her submission, and it took her a couple extra seconds to get it on. Other than that, it was balls to the walls action from the start. They didn't have to lean on any, any bells and whistles or smoke and mirrors, no weapons. They didn't lean on the no disqualification aspect of the triple threat match. They just had seamless transition after transition, high spots, drama. The crowd was with it the entire time. And just what this match meant, because if you look at that first class of NXT women that really helped elevate and get a lot of credit for the women's evolution in the 4 horsewomen, that next class of NXT was headlined by these 3. And for them to get this spot at WrestleMania and deliver on some very, very high expectations, for me, it's the match that has stuck with me all year long. I think there was a lot of matches that I wanted to try to shoehorn into the top 5 that I just couldn't. I think Becky, Bayley, and Lyra at Evolution was absolutely spectacular. Rhea and Io at Evolution with Naomi's cash-in was great. Hangman Adam Page's 2 matches that he had were spectacular. Will Ospreay had a ton of great matches. There was a lot of different matches that you could go with. Me, my personal taste, I went with this match. I understand I'm probably going to get ripped for it. John, who'd you go with on this one?
It's so funny because when it does come to evaluating what you believe a great match is, what constitutes it, everyone has a totally different opinion. Because for me, when I'm thinking of match of the year, it's like without question, I don't even second guess it. It was Hangman versus Ospreay at Double or Nothing. To me, it was 2 of the peak performers in wrestling with massive stakes. Stakes are extremely important to me in a pro wrestling match, and the stakes were outstanding for this number 1 contender spot at the first stadium show against the champion that is reigning terror over the company, while simultaneously this one character is going on this massive spiritual journey transformation that he's trying to find himself. And Will Ospreay is like, I'm going to be the guy here. So it was such a well-rounded foundation. And then the actual match itself, where how many times, guys, in 2025 is a match truly unpredictable? It was very hard to say definitively who was going to win that match. And I thought it was just so tremendously well executed. For me, it was the match of the year. I do believe, Rick, that women's wrestling carried a lot of pro wrestling this year. I did put Io, Rhea, and Bianca in my top 5. However, I will admit, and I also put a Stardom match in there too. However, I did not feel at any point this year that triple threat was the best match I'd seen in wrestling. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time, but I did not think it was the best match I've seen in wrestling this year.
SB3, you're probably more on John's side on this one, I believe.
Yeah, I didn't have that in my top 5. If this was WWE match of the year, yeah, no question. This was my match of the year. And this was a great year in ring for WWE, whether it's that triple threat at WrestleMania, whether it's the triple threat TLC on SmackDown following WrestleMania, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn from Elimination Chamber doesn't get a lot of love, but it should. Cody Rhodes and John Cena at SummerSlam, John Cena and AJ Styles at Crown Jewel. Like, WWE had a stellar year in the ring. I did not have one WWE matchup in my top 5 because I felt like the bar was set at the beginning of the year by Kenny Omega and Gabe Kidd at Wrestle Dynasty.
Yeah, great match.
And then the only matches that were able to like take that spot from it was what John said, Hangman and Ospreay. It was just a phenomenal 38 minutes of just this great matchup. They're going back and forth, the unpredictability of it, the callbacks to their previous rivalries with Hangman busting out the big pressure by Swerve and doing the V trigger for Kenny Omega. You got Ospreay going for One Ring Angels and he's going for Cal Fletcher's moves and just all the story. And then you did not know who was going to win to the very last moment. And then Hangman winning was not what I wanted, but he got it. And I was like, that was the right decision. I just had my hands up. Like, yeah, great. That was awesome. I was up.
I thought it was Ospreay the whole way. And then when Paige won, I was like, okay.
I was in the
I'm great.
I was in the UK and it was like 5:15 in the morning. I did not go to sleep until 6 a.m. because that match was like adrenaline in my soul, like the Cody Rhodes theme song says. But when you throw in that type of wrestling and combine it with violence and storytelling and all these different elements torn into one. Jon Moxley and Hangman Adam Page, that was my match of the year. That was that Hangman and Ospreay had that spot for 2 months, and then that match happened. I was like, nah, that's the match of the year. That's the big moment. That's the payoff to this Death Rider story, the payoff to the Hangman redemption arc. You got the Hangman and Swerve parts of it. You got Darby coming back. You got Bryan dressed as Blue Panther. You got the Death Riders. You got the Bruv coming out. Like, it's just, oh my God, all the emotions, all the twists and turns. That's what wrestling's all about. That was my match of the year. I got to throw some love to my boy Mystico. Got an interview coming out with him. Mystico and MJF in Arena Mexico. That is the most incredible crowd heat you will hear from any match in 2025. Go out of your way to see it if you haven't seen it already.
Can I say real quick here before Blake? Yeah, I know you got great stuff to add here. I want to give a shout to Mystico, who also, this was one of the most remarkable years ever for someone of Mystico's stature. Who would have thought that Sin Cara in 2025 would be one of the top acts in the world? And it's I got to say it to him as well, but I just find it so fascinating. Back in 2007, the 2 top draws in professional wrestling were Mystico in Mexico and John Cena in the United States. And now in 2025, nearly 20 years later, the 2 biggest draws in wrestling this year were Mystico and John Cena. Wild. Yeah, it's wild. Sorry, Blake, what would you have here?
No, and like Rick said, some people think he's silly for picking the triple threat at 1. I had it at 1 too. I think in terms of like comparing it to the best triple threat matches I've seen, I think, if you're talking WWE and there's probably others out there that I just forget off the top of my head, but like to me, it's the best one maybe since WrestleMania 20. I know I really like Gunther, Sheamus, McIntyre too, but even like, Rock, Taker, Angle, Vengeance 2002 is probably, I think, heralded as maybe the best triple threat in WWE history. But I just was so immersed in that one with Rhea, Io, and Bianca. And look, too, I had Rhea and Io in 2 of my top 3 matches this year. Like, I just thought that the one at Evolution was so good, and everybody was kind of like, well, the Naomi cash-in hurt it. I completely disagree. I thought it was kind of the perfect setting. If you're talking about using that device of the cash-in, it was the perfect time to do it, and it made it even more memorable in my opinion. So, and then, I had the Hangman Ospreay from Double or Nothing sandwiched in between those. So, but I'm glad SP3 brought up the MJF Mystico one. Like, right before I made my list, I went back to watch that one again, and you want to talk about like a atmosphere, just pure atmosphere, babyface, heel, like the dynamic that there's a lot of gray area in 2025 sometimes. It does not get better than that for me when it comes to like just pure old school, like professional wrestling type stuff where you're all bought in on the babyface trying to overcome this dastardly bastard heel. And that one was just tremendous too. And I'll just mention this one as well. And I don't remember if Rick had this one. Actually, you did, Rick. The Cena AJ Styles one from Crown Jewel was such a different type of match to where that is where the ultimate like subjective, what do you want to see? But I just thought for the spectacle that it was, and knowing it was like a one-time thing where they pulled out all this different stuff, I had to give that a spot on my list too, just because I thought that was one of the more unique matches of the year. And again, that could mean best, whatever word, superlative you want to use to describe it, but I put it on my list.
So after years of watching professional wrestling from a analytical standpoint, there's not a lot that gets me out of my chair anymore, right? Like, John, you've as somebody who's covered professional sports, right? Like, you have to watch these great moments from the press box and not move, not react.
People hate watching wrestling with me because I just sit there and I'm just like,
oh yeah.
And that's why I like going to because I can get sucked up in the crowd, but and that's why I like going to WWE events and AEW events, because they want you to be a part of the show and they encourage that kind of behavior. So it's a little bit easier for me in the moment with other people to get caught up in it. But just sitting in my office, like, it takes a lot for me to have a kind of a reaction.
Yeah. I mean,
when John Cena caught AJ Styles and set him up for the Sister Abigail, that's the first time wrestling made me cry, and I don't know how long. Genuinely. It was such a beautifully organic moment after that, when the crowd brought out the Fireflies and John Cena sat up after he kicked out of his sister Abigail, and he just looks around and he gets this look on his face, and that was my moment of the year, in all sincerity. Like, it takes a lot for me to feel something like that in matches anymore. And that's why I had that so high on my list. I thought it was tremendous. I'm a huge Bray Wyatt guy, obviously. I mean, my son's middle name is Wyatt for a reason. Like, that meant a lot to me. That it just made me, I was a wrestling fan again in that moment, if that makes sense, right? Like, it was just a lot for me, and it was so beautiful. I loved it. That's why I had it as high as number 2 on my list.
Yeah, I mean, listen, great matches are made of moments that make you feel something, and that's a huge part of all this. So it's funny because, like, that match, I hardly even consider it a match because it's like a collection of things that happen in something that is constructed as a match, but it's not really a match, but it resonated. So that's where the beauty of all this sits, that a match can be a lot of things. A match can be that. It can be TLC 2. It can be WeLC. It can be Ospreay versus Hangman. It can be a lot of things, you know? So, you know, that's the beauty of it. And I don't know, I feel like show of the year is probably the natural place to take this next, Rick, but
yes, it is.
You know, this was a tough one too for a lot of us, where I feel like I don't think there was one show this year in wrestling that was like, hands down, that's one of the greatest wrestling shows I've ever seen.
That's a fair statement.
But there were some pretty good shows throughout wrestling this year.
Yeah, so I went with Evolution at number 1. You'll notice a theme. If it's close, I'm probably going to lean toward the ladies. But being there in person for that show, I can just tell you that there was, and I hate to sound cliche, there was a certain amount of like magic and energy in the building that night. And I was at Saturday night's main event the night before that had 13,000 fans, as opposed to Evolution the next night, competing with a Beyonce concert down the street that had 8,500 people in it. The arena was twice as loud for Evolution as it was for Saturday night's main event. Those were some of the most passionate women's wrestling fans I've ever been around. I thought the women delivered again from the opening contest, which was Becky, Bayley, and Lyra in the second best women's triple threat match that I've seen all year. And I really wanted to put that in my top 5 for match of the year, and I just couldn't. But it was so good, with one of the smoothest finishes you'll ever see, with the Becky Lynch pin at the end of it to retain the title, all the way down to Io and Rhea at the end, and Naomi's cash in, and they were actually like shepherding us in position for the press conference, the final WWE press conference that they did, and we were all just kind of like standing out on the floor waiting to see how this match was going to end. And then all of a sudden Naomi's music hit, and every single one of us were like, oh damn, the entire press conference just shifted because Naomi's about to win this championship. And she did, and it was a spectacular moment. I thought the match that she had with Jade that night was the best one of the series that they had together. There was just a lot of really, really great moments there. And that show had no business being as good as it was, with as little fucks that WWE gave about actually building it. Like, time and time again, they over-delivered what WWE, and that's the women's division, over-delivered what WWE gave them to work with, and they deserve all the credit in the world for being as good as they are. And that show was spectacular, and that's why I had it at number 1. SP3?
I had the winner at number 1, the winner of show of the year for us, AEW Double or Nothing, because it was just, I felt like the most consistent show. Like, that was a 10 out of 10 show for me, as far as like, there was one kind of dud on it, and that's the Sons of Texas, because I never liked the Sons of Texas going against the Hurt Syndicate. But other than that, every match was great. Like, you had Ricochet and Mark Briscoe over deliver in a stretcher match. You had Mercedes and Jamie Hayter in the Owen Hart final, which was one of the best women's matches of the year. You had the Anarchy in the Arena, which in my opinion, that's the best Anarchy in the Arena they've ever done, because they had big stars like Swerve, the Omega, the Young Bucks, Jon Moxley, and the Death Riders in it. And you had Samoa Joe's in it. The great moment with the ladies, with Willow Nightingale being in the matchup and Marina Shafir, and really kind of starting the whole aura that's been built up for Marina Shafir within AEW in that one matchup right there. And like John said, he praised it so much. I can't say too much about it. Hangman Adam Page and Will Ospreay is one of the greatest AEW main events of all time. So top to bottom, that's one of the best shows that AEW has ever produced. So that had to be my number one. But the highs of All In made that number two for me. That's like a 9.5 out of 10 show because of the way it ends with Hangman beating Moxley. But you also got the best tag team match of the year with the Bucks, Swerve and Ospreay. You got the 2 Casino Gauntlets with Athena winning one of them, which I was very happy to see right there. You had Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné in the biggest AEW women's match of all time. But I got to show some love to Japan because I thought Stardom All-Star Grand Queendom was a perfect show. The biggest show in Stardom's history, one of the best matches of the year. Saya Kamatani versus Tam Nakano. The emotion, the drama, and the finale with Tam Nakano pointing with Saya by her side in tears, and then the screen goes to black and then she disappears in the darkness. That's one of the greatest endings to a pay-per-view ever. And New Japan Pro Wrestling, the new beginning in Osaka, Goto winning the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, in my eyes, that's my favorite moment of 2025 because a guy that has always been the bridesmaid, never the bride, finally got married on that night and beat Zack Sabre Jr. in one of the best New Japan matches of the year.
John, which one did you go with?
Goto's in Street Fighter, right?
Yes, he is.
That's wild. I had All-Star Grand Queendom on my top 5 too, by the way. I went for Double or Nothing as well. I'm just so big on stakes. Stakes have to be a foundational element of great wrestling because if you're wrestling without stakes, why do people care? And I think a lot of times one of the knocks from the internet on a company like AEW is that, well, the stakes aren't there. One of the reasons why, like we did our Hardy Awards on the Extreme Life this past week, and Matt gave the triple threat from night one, CM Punk, Rollins, and Roman Reigns, is his match of the year. And I said the reason that I don't rank that match higher is just because I didn't feel like the stakes were truly there to it. So Double or Nothing was full of stakes with the 2 Owen matches, Anarchy in the Arena, even though no one wins anything by winning it, it was a positional thing, and it was a major moment for the characters evolving. And you neglected the best moment of the match, SP3, which was Let the Bodies Hit the Floor coming back, which was an amazing moment for 2025. But it does go to show this category that one misstep on a card can really bring something down. Like All In was an amazing show. I was there. It was absurdly long and very difficult in that sense. Revolution probably would have won show of the year if the main event wasn't such a clunker, right?
If it was the Hollywood ending, it's the show of the year.
It probably so. Evolution was my number 3. I thought Evolution was an awesome show that, as you said, Rick, totally overachieved in spite of having no build. And maybe if it had more build and the stakes felt bigger, maybe I'm giving it number 1. But stakes are the underlying factor for me. What do you say, Blake?
Well, I went Evolution 1 too, but I think this is where, like, because again, we have to be so, like, it's this way or that way. Like, we're talking about 1 versus 2, right? For me, my number 1 and number 2, there's not really any gap there. Like, we're talking just, hey, it's this, Double or Nothing. They're 2 different shows in terms of, like, they're different in terms of how they're built. They're different in terms of, like, what exactly they mean to the promotion at that time. And so I just think it's like, I'm not going to just go and say, oh, Evolution is easily the best show over Double or Nothing. Like, no, I voted it 1 just because, and 2, I think, like, how you consume stuff matters. Like, admittedly, I had to watch Double or Nothing, like, on replay. I didn't get to watch the thing live because I had something going on, had to watch it the next morning. It's a little bit different because, like, you're not consuming it live. You're not seeing it in real time. You can still analyze and do all those things, but it's also the internet era where I see something on my phone of like, oh, this happened. Well, shit, I didn't want to get spoiled, but it happened. You know? And like, you just can't avoid that sometimes. But yet it still wound up being number 2 on my list. But I did go with Evolution because I remember thinking just at the time, man, and I mentioned like my love for the Rhea and Io match. I could have swapped that with the triple threat at 1, and I would have been okay with that because I do think there is an argument to be made that was a better match. Because of, again, even the Naomi thing adding in, I felt like it added to the overall main event on what wound up being my number one choice. But like, again, AEW All In got number 3 on my list. Revolution got 4. And you guys mentioned the difference in how that could change if one little thing is different. And the one that I think, it's a TV show, right? But I thought WWE did a great job with the Madison Square Garden Raw, and just all the different.
As well.
I mean, I think that's one. Again, I'm not going to say there probably was never going to be a universe where I was going to vote it for number 1 or anything, but that is kind of one where if we're comparing like PLEs, pay-per-views, and all that, I thought for a TV episode, that was a great one, just in terms of all the things they were able to execute on that particular show.
All right, we're gonna try to pick up the pace here a little bit because I just got a message from my wife that I might need to go pick up the kids. So we got three awards here that we got to get to. I think this is the perfect picture for this particular award because there are a lot of people crying that Mercedes Moné won Women's Wrestler of the Year. SP3, I thought this one was a landslide. I thought this was her year with the global domination that she had, the Ultimo Moné storyline, and the fact that like I she really did kind of go out of her way to wrestle across the globe, promote these other independent promotions, carry their championships on national television on AEW. She put on banger match after banger match. She didn't even win like the major championship this year, and yet she still gets flack for like, again, the Becky Hogan type scenario, and I've got creative control, and I'm not going to lose this, that, and the other thing. Now, all of a sudden, she's racking up losses, and she's putting over people like Willow Nightingale, and she's putting over people like Red Velvet. Like, you have to build the monster in order to put others over. I think overall, her work that she's done this year, in-ring, character-wise, what she's meant across the globe to wrestling promotions everywhere, I thought she was a slam dunk number 1 choice on this one.
I didn't put her at number 1, but I have no issue with Mercedes Moné winning because of what she was able to do worldwide, whether it's CMLL, New Japan, across the independent scene, and AEW, an amazing run with the Ultimo Role and setting the record for most titles held. I got Timeless Toni Storm at number 1 because, like I said, I thought she was the best character, the best on the mic, that had one of the best feuds of the year, had the greatest AEW women's matchup of all time with Mariah May, and probably the second with Mercedes Moné. I had her at number 1, and Saya Kamitani was the biggest star in all of Japan. Tokyo Sports MVP, the first woman to ever do that. That was number 1. Number 2 for me, and then Mercedes was number 3.
Blake, who'd you go with?
Yeah, I went with Mercedes 2 at 1. I think the biggest what if for me is what happens if Naomi finishes the year. I don't know that she moves ahead of Mercedes, but I think that would have been one of the more interesting questions. I had Becky at 2, Toni Storm at 3, and Naomi at 4. So I'm just curious, like, again, I don't know if she makes up that gap just based on the year Mercedes had, but that's a big what if, in my opinion.
Yeah, I could have put Becky on my top 5 if I knew she was going to lose comeback for the year. I thought that was kind of a lock for her, so I tried to not look through rose-colored glasses on that one, but I did have Naomi at 3 as well. I'm with you. I think she was on a path to win this award for sure, and but she's got bigger and more important things to take care of now. John?
It was a 2-horse race for me between Mercedes and EO, and I think you could have flipped a coin, and whichever side it landed on, you would have had the right choice. EO did not get it for me. Mercedes did, only primarily because, to me, it kind of feels like EO Sky did the same thing all year creatively. And that is not her fault by any stretch of the imagination. That is not her fault, but she was kept in this vortex of being the nuclear option for, we need a really good match with this group of people, throw Io Sky in there. and she delivered a great match, right? Like, that's what her role was this year. And it was amazing. I think one of the biggest compliments you can give to her is at the end of that triple threat, going into the match, you're thinking, Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair are the stars here, and Io's the glue that's going to keep it together. The end of that match, you're like, you know what? Io Sky's the star of this match, and she's the top woman right now. So that's a huge credit to her. But Mercedes had just an amazing year, doing what you're supposed to do in wrestling and enhancing everyone that you're working with. Would I have liked more thoughtful storytelling with her throughout the year? Yes, I would have, because I think there are better stories to tell with Mercedes Moné than what they've told with her so far. There are still some that you can tell. But the one thing that I can take a lot of pride in, gentlemen, and I know you can too, is that if we were in this position, all four of us would be allowed to call a Mercedes Moné match.
Drop the mic.
Not everyone can say that.
Men's Wrestler of the Year, Hangman Adam Page. He wins it over John Cena. I did go for Cena here, much for the same reason why I went with Cena for storyline of the year. I just thought, look, again, not necessarily storyline wise. I thought John did an incredible job performance wise with the material that he was given to work with. He did cut some really, really good promos. I thought his exchange with CM Punk was excellent. And again, he was just everywhere this year. Merchandise mover, headline maker. This was his year in professional wrestling, which is part of the reason why, you know, we did award him with the Legacy Award for everything that he has accomplished in his career this year. And we don't really need to discuss that. But for me, this was John Cena's year. It sucks so bad that they fumbled his creative as much as they did. But to me, it just felt like, in a way, it just kind of felt wrong choosing somebody other than John Cena with this being his last year in professional wrestling. It just felt like it was his year for me. But I totally get why everybody voted for Hangman Adam Page. If you all did vote for Hangman Adam Page at number 1, I had him at number 2, SP3.
I had him at number 1. I did not have John Cena in any of my top 5, mainly because he had a couple of the worst matches that I saw this year. And anytime anybody's going to have one of the worst matches, especially the Cody Rhodes match at WrestleMania, I can't in good conscience be like, I can't put you in the top 5. To me, Hangman Adam Page was kind of like the driving force behind the rebound year for AEW. He was the part of the storyline of the year, part of our feud of the year. He had the multiple match of the year candidates, and I thought his world title run up until the Samoa Joe rivalry was really he was positioned as the top guy, which I always wanted from his first reign and never got, and I finally got it here. So Hangman was the clear slam dunk number 1 for me. The only person who made me question that was Mystico, because Mystico was the top draw in Mexico and really was the driving force behind what was my promotion of the year in CMLL. So I had to give Mystico number 2.
Blake?
Yeah, I put Cena at 1 just because, again, like, I just think in terms of man of the year, like, he was the center of the universe, it seemed like. And I think it's not because, like, if it was most well-booked man of the year, like, absolutely not. Like, not even a debate. Like, but I just think because of everything revolving around Cena and his universe this year, I went with him at 1, but I think, you know, had Hangman at 2, Mystico at 3, had Takeshita at 4. I thought Takeshita had, again, we talked about him a little bit, but not a ton. Like, I think he's another one where, you know, if you remove just some of these like all-timer type years for some certain people and like the specialty of the Cena retirement tour and all that, like, my goodness, what a year for Takeshita. So, yeah, but I don't, again, have a strong feeling one way or the other. It just kind of depends on what you value the most here.
John?
If we were talking about the best men's performer in wrestling, it was Hangman Adam Page, and he was my number 2 in this award. But John Cena was, like you said at the beginning of this episode, Rick, like, John Cena was the epicenter of the wrestling universe this year. He was the biggest draw in pro wrestling this year. He was the biggest talking point of pro wrestling this year. And Sid, you bring up, like, the first half of his run was awful, and it was bad. There's no questions asked. Let's turn that around. The second half of his run was exceptional. It was probably the best work.
And there also was the Brock Lesnar match.
There was the Brock Lesnar match, but I'm not going to hold one match against the rest of the body of work from the second half of the year.
I mean, it was a great suit, but there was a turd in it.
But here's the reality, though. John Cena did the best work of his career in the second half of the year since probably 2015. Right? Like, I mean, without question, in 10 years, and had some of the best matches of his career. I think that the Cody match at SummerSlam is one of the best matches of his career, a top 5 match of his career, if not maybe top 3. The Gunther match I thought was exceptional. I really thought that was a tremendous match. I'm putting that up there. I thought the Logan Paul match was very good for what it was.
Yeah.
You guys loved the AJ Styles match. That's something. These are some of the best matches that Jon has ever put on.
Sami Zayn was really good too.
Sami Zayn from TV was great. So yeah, I really do believe that Jon earned that distinction for a lot of reasons. And yes, that first half of the year was brutal. No questions asked about it. But I'm a little more forgiving of it for him just because it's very apparent that this guy had very little to do with any of that.
Yeah. And again, like Jon said this at the beginning of the show, and if you missed it, like there were some great individual performances from WWE, and I know there were a lot of people who were wondering and questioning, why they didn't win more categories. Like a lot of it came down to creative this year and direction, and Jon's first half of the year was greatly hindered by some bad creative decisions. And AEW was honestly just more consistent and compelling. If you looked at headlines, if you looked at revenue, if you looked at major deals with Netflix and all this stuff, and this is, I wrote this at the beginning of our awards piece. Like, if you look beyond the ratings, the revenue, and the headlines, you would see AEW, and you would see some of the most consistent, compelling storytelling that has happened in professional wrestling this year, most consistent in-ring quality this year. And I'll give credit to Cam Hawkins for saying this on X. Just because McDonald's sells the most hamburgers doesn't mean they have the best burger in the business.
Yes.
That's not what happened here. And I understand the argument of how can you pick anybody other than WWE based off of the financial success that they had this year? No question. But part of our job as critics is to point people to the other promotions that are having great matches and putting on great work and saying, hey, maybe you should check this out. The movie that wins movie of the year at the Oscars every year ain't the biggest box office. I'm telling Avatar Fire and Ash ain't winning the Oscar this year or next year. It's not happening. It's going to be something else that wins. Just because you're the biggest and most profitable does not mean that you had the best year. AEW across the board, in my opinion, had the best year this year. That's why I voted them the promotion of the year. CMLL had a fantastic year. They actually finished second in our voting ahead of WWE. WWE finished third. I don't, it's not a knock against WWE for what they did this year, but AEW was just consistently better, in my opinion, SP3.
I invested money and have a monthly subscription to CMLL's YouTube channel to watch their Friday night shows. That was the difference maker for me putting them at number one, because I spend money and consistently will spend money month after month to watch those shows in Arena, Mexico, despite the commentary being in Spanish. And I am not fluent in Spanish. I didn't take Spanish in high school, but I will watch those shows because it has some of the most spectacular pro wrestling. And most of all, it has the best crowd. This company sold over 1 million tickets. So if you're looking for business metrics to mix in for the vote, that was a big thing for me. And that's why AEW was actually third for me. I put Stardom at number 2 because Stardom had a fantastic year when it came to business and the quality of their matches. And like I said, Saya Kamatani had an amazing year. I did not even put WWE. I did put an extension of WWE in my top 5 with Lucha Libre AAA because that was actually a big year for them. And the acquisition by WWE improved their product. And I actually enjoyed AAA a lot this year and what they were able to do. And Dominic Mysterio's run, El Hijo del Vikingo, and his relationship with the fans was fascinating to watch unfold. It was a great year for multiple promotions when it came to quality and business. And then there was AEW, who was just great when it came to quality, and they turned around the fan perception. So I don't mind the fact that they won promotion of the year, but CMLL was it for me.
Blake?
Look, I admittedly I put WWE at 1 for the business reasons that Rick pushed back on. But I'm gonna, instead of just pointing out that obvious thing, because I was probably as down on WWE this year as I've been since Triple H took over. Honestly, I just thought creatively it was a down year. But I did lean more on the business aspect. But I'm gonna say this, like, I'll use my time here to point out these things. AEW, like, resurgent year. CMLL could absolutely have the argument to be at 1. TNA gets a TV deal on AMC. Like you mentioned, like Triple I, all of a sudden they're combined with WWE. WWE kind of gives it a new vision for the future. Like Stardom, like all these things. Like for anyone out there who wants to try to suggest that it was a bad year for wrestling in terms of outside of WWE or just the entire thing as a whole, I would completely push back on that because I think this was quite a race in terms of like what again are you going to value in terms of how you rank these, but I can't say a bad word about any of these sort of top tier promotions. And if you want to, again, do the books for every company and just base it solely on that, which I may have leaned into a little bit too much with the WWE side of things, admittedly, that's fine. But man, like, again, look at all the good stories that are coming out with these other companies that are going to be, you know, in whatever order they finished in our composite vote. Like, I just think it was a resurgent year for several of these top companies.
John, you have the final word, sir.
I think TNA's creative really hurt its standings in terms of where it would have finished, because if you look at purely what TNA accomplished this year from a business perspective, this is one of the best years in TNA history. like what they were able to do with Slammiversary and Bound for Glory and get the WWE partnership going and get the new TV deal with AMC. This is a monumental year, in fact, for TNA. But if you've had access to TNA Impact, which a lot of people don't, it hasn't been a good TV show for the most part. So I think that really hurt it. And I do believe a lot of TNA's success came from the partnership with WWE, and WWE did help TNA quite a bit. And TNA helped WWE too. Make no mistake about that. There was definitely benefits all around from there. For me, when I break this down, AEW's peak this year, which I'd say was probably end of April to mid-August or so. Does that sound about right? Would we agree that was AEW's peak, right? That was bigger than any period of peak that any other company had this year, WWE included. So that was what ultimately led to me voting for AEW, because I do think that peak that we saw was the closest that we've seen to AEW recapturing that 2020-2021 magic that it had. Now, I don't think the storytelling's been perfect since then. It's very hard to book pro wrestling television. And I encourage you to check out my interview with Tony that's on this SI YouTube channel here, because the goal of it was to get inside his creative psyche and try to get an understanding of how his brain works when he's laying this stuff out. He's a complicated guy. So I wanted to try to break that down and understand what his psyche is. So I hope you come away with that. And the last thing I'll just say here, Rick, because we had a great panel vote and we had so many inquisitive and intuitive minds contributing to these awards, I'm very proud of the awards that we put out. But with that said, we are not the authoritative decision makers on what was the best and what was the worst of wrestling in 2025 or ever, because this is all subjective.
Yes.
And this may be our collective opinions, which, as we've demonstrated throughout the course of this, we don't even share the same opinions amongst us here. That does not tell you that we are the authority on it. And to pull a 2016 WWE, you the fans are the authority. like you choose what was the best for you. You choose what was the worst for you. And the idea that we are telling you how to feel is just asinine.
Yeah.
It's truly asinine. And what's also asinine is that there are people on this planet who are not allowed to call Mercedes Moné matches. But alas, we can.
And aren't allowed in parties as well, which is the whole reason why they're upset.
But so. That's me getting off my soapbox.
And they're not from New York. They're not from New York. We don't recognize them from New York. They don't belong here.
Oh, thank you guys so much for tuning into our conversation. All of you who stuck in for the nearly 2 hours that we were here. My plan was to do an hour, and we just rambled on incessantly. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully we entertained you. Happy New Year. Thank you guys so much. And we'll see how much we can tick you guys off in 2026 in December when we put out our awards for this next year, which I'm hoping is going to be a great year in professional wrestling. Again, check out John's interview with Tony Khan. Check out my interview with Kendall Gray, who again was named our 2026 person to watch in professional wrestling.
My wire transfer just went through for that interview, by the way.
Hang on. I just got to. Okay. All right. Sweet. I actually just got a text from my wife that I don't need to pick up the kids. So we want to keep this going for another 20 minutes or no? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Good.
We've been all right. Take care, everybody. Appreciate you. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll talk at you again later. Take care, everybody.